Welcome everyone to the top 20 games of 2013, courtesy of me, Cornshaq. Anyway, this is the first time I've ever decided to do a top 10 or 15, 20 list. I've never really done a countdown list before, so bear with me. It's going to be rough around the edges for sure. But I play a lot of games, obviously, and being my main number one passion, I always have kind of my own opinions on what my game of the year is and things like that. But I never really talk about it a whole lot. So I figured this year would be the first year, my first annual top 20 list. I know some people do 5, 10, top 10. And some people even ask, really, you can come up with 20 games this year that you think are worthy of a list? Yeah, there's actually quite a few games that didn't make the list that I did play this year. Usually some bad games are amongst that, but we'll get to those, or maybe not get to those as we go on. But anyway, this is my top 20. Of course, everyone has their own opinion. This just happens to be mine. And of course, I would love to hear what your guys' opinions are of the list once you watch the entire video, see my top 20. If something didn't make the list, I do apologize. It may have been something that really is worth my time that I just either didn't get a chance to play, or there's cases where, maybe I didn't like the game quite as much as maybe you did. And honestly, with some numbers, especially with the numbers closer to the 20, you could probably rearrange a few of these, or this is a definitive list. Really only my top, like 10 to 12, like those are definitive. Like I knew what my number one game of this year was. That was pretty easy. It was kind of piecing together maybe, did this game quite beat out this game? You can take kind of nuances or little pieces of that and do what you want with it. But anyway, here is my top 20 list. Basically what we're going to do is just do a number, show you the game's box art, and then I'll talk about it a little bit. I have a few clips I may introduce throughout the top 20 of games that I did do for my channel, but I didn't want to show any footage that I didn't personally record. And unfortunately, on a lot of the games, they're on a system that I unfortunately can't record, at least at this moment. So anyway, here we go with my top 20 games of 2013. Number 20. Number 1 that we're going to be talking about, but number 20 on the list, is Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner Soul Hackers. That's a lot to say, right? I guess we'll go down from here as far as total length of a name goes. But anyway, Soul Hackers is a game in the Devil Summoner series. I mean, that is a sub-series of the Shin Megami series. If you're not really too familiar with Shin Megami, Persona is kind of the game that became the most mainstream in the series. Persona 3 and Persona 4 have become kind of mainstream popularity as far as RPG fans and video game fans go. But the Shin Megami series has been going on for a very long time, spanning almost every single system that's ever existed since it was created, all the way back on the NES or MXX days of video gaming. But the Devil Summoner series is kind of a spin-off of that whole thing. It uses a little bit of a different battle system, which usually is what defines what the spin-offs for Shin Megami are. They kind of all have the same basic of being demon summoning, of you recruiting demons to your party to use in battle. And the main series, of course, just Shin Megami Tensei is kind of the main focus of everything, and we'll get to that later. But the Devil Summoner Soul Hacker game is actually a remake of a Sega Saturn game from 1997. Kind of funny that we'll actually have a couple of remakes on this list. But Soul Hacker is a great game, not the best Shin Megami game that came out this year even, but it's a very fun 3DS RPG. It has a lot of fun stuff to do. You can collect demons in it. There's this virtual world that you explore, which is kind of where everything is based around. That you collect the demons and do stuff with them and travel along a map. It's not super detailed as far as the map goes. It's almost a straight port in some ways from the original Soul Hacker game that was released on Sega Saturn and PlayStation 1. But they did add voice acting to it. They changed the intro, update the graphics a bit, added new demons that were able to be found in it. So if you played the original before, which I don't think too many of you guys have, this one's definitely worth checking out, even if you played the original Soul Hacker game. This game, a lot of fun. It's a good RPG. There's a lot of stuff to collect in it. And just like all the other Shin Megami games, there is a lot of grinding that goes on in the game. It uses a few unique systems that other Shin Megami games don't use as far as like the money goes, as far as the way you're able to summon demons. You kind of have a limited amount, and you have to earn more of that in order to summon demons and keep demons in your party. So you have like checks and balances kind of system going on where you want to make sure that you're able to have the demons ready to go in your party. Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner Soul Hacker, definitely worth checking out. If you're going to check out only one Shin Megami game from 2013, this may not be the one you want, but still definitely worth checking out if you're an RPG fan. Number 19. Number 19 is Batman Arkham Origins. Now, Arkham Origins is the third game in the Batman Arkham series, and Arkham Origins is the first one not done by the team that made Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. They used the same basic engine and used a lot of the same area type things as Arkham City did, but they created a new story. A story that takes place more of, well, Batman's origins are more around there. So you have kind of the introduction of the Joker, at least in the Arkham universe of the Joker. And you do your kind of first battles with some of the villains that Batman will be facing for many, many years, including ones that do appear in other Arkham games, while there is also plenty that appear only in Arkham Origins for the very first time. The game has a ton to do in it as far as collectibles go. There's a lot of side quests to get done. You have an open city that you can explore and do a lot in. Isn't maybe as much as other open world games that came out this year? No, and we'll get to those later. But Arkham Origins is a very solid game in the Arkham franchise. A little bit low on my list, mainly just for the fact that it is kind of the same thing in a lot of ways as the previous games. Still very solid. There's some really cool stuff overall with the Joker storyline, and there's some definite things worth checking out if you're a Batman fan. The combat is still very good, though it does take a hit at some points with kind of the fluidity, if that's a word, of the combat. It's kind of a little bit more broken up. It's not quite as fluid as it was in Arkham City, but still very good, very fun to play, and it's the kind of battle system that I actually really enjoy. I like that kind of stuff. It's something that we've seen in Batman, stuff that we see a little bit in Assassin's Creed, and also a game like Sleeping Dogs that came out a little while ago, another game with similar kind of combat. Stuff I actually really enjoy, that counter combat. It's a lot of fun for me. So anyway, that's Batman Arkham Origins. A very solid entry in the Batman series, and if you need a Batman game this year, of course that's the one you're going to check out, but not as good as Asylum or City. Number 18. Next up on my list is Animal Crossing New Leaf. You kind of go completely in a different direction from going from Batman Arkham Origins to Animal Crossing. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Animal Crossing, wow. It's kind of hard to explain a little bit. It's a town life sim. Basically a game that you just throw away any free time you have, because if you become addicted to this thing, you're going to be playing it nonstop. You, in this version, New Leaf, you're the mayor of the town that you come across in Animal Crossing. And all the other ones, you came across the town, you're a new visitor to the town, you get a new home. And your main story is actually just paying off the debt of your house. Paying off the debt, building a new addition onto your house, whether it's a bigger basement or another floor, just bigger space overall. And you're earning money to pay that off. But there's so much more to do in it than just that. You're collecting bugs, you're catching fish, you're digging up fossils. You're, just finding all the other really cool and random objects that you find. You're designing new t-shirt designs. You're, painting your house all kinds of different colors. You're talking to your neighbors, doing fetch quests and side stuff for your neighbors. This is a game that becomes addicting. You love to see the little growth of your town. You start off with your town, only a few homes there and a few residents of your town, all of which are very unique. And there's tons of residents that can possibly join in your town, and every day maybe somebody new moves into your neighborhood, maybe someone leaves, and if you have connectability with friends that also play the game, somebody may leave your neighborhood and join somebody else's neighborhood, and they even mention you if you've already made contact with another friend of yours, if they go to that person's town, they'll, hey, I came from whoever's town, whatever you decide to name it. It's a lot of customizing in the game. There's a lot of fun to be had in it. Like I said, this is a time-wasting type of game. If you get addicted to it, you're addicted to it. There's no doubt about it. Animal Crossing New Leaf definitely changed and fixed up some of the issues I had with the Nintendo Wii version of the game that came out a few years ago, City Folk. And definitely my favorite in the series since the original Animal Crossing came out back on the Nintendo GameCube in North America. Number 17. Next up on the list is a game that is controversial as hell as far as best game of the year list goes, and this one is Ride to Hell Retribution. Now, you may question yourself right away, why in the heck are you putting this on your list? Well, Ride to Hell Retribution is a game so bad, that it's almost good. It is like that ugly dog that's so ugly, it's kind of cute. This game has some of the worst dialogue, worst cutscenes, worst programming you will ever see. Just the fact of the clothed sex scenes are enough to make this game worthy of anyone's worst ever list as far as gaming goes. But it's a game that is just so utterly bad in every possible facet that it's an oddity. It's a train wreck. You need to play it or see it to believe how bad it is. Glitches that happen nonstop. Animations that end up leading to nothing. Flying off motorcycles. Things exploding for absolutely no freaking reason. I mean, it's a game that is just really unbelievable that it actually got released. It's a game that was in limbo for so many years. Originally supposed to be out, I think, in 2008. It was canceled, reworked many, many times over. And it's one of those ones where just unbelievable that it did finally make it to store shelves. And you just kind of have to be like, applaud the fact that this game even exists in any playable format. Ride to Hell Retribution may be on many people's worst game of the year list, but it has a special place in my heart for being so bad, it's actually kind of good. Number 16. Next up is Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, the sequel to the original Luigi's Mansion, which was a launch title for the Nintendo GameCube. One of my absolute favorite GameCube games that ever came out. There was something different and unique about it for the time. Having Luigi as a main character was something Nintendo really hadn't done up to that point. Only a few side things has Luigi really been the star of anything. And with Luigi's Mansion, you were fighting ghosts as Luigi in a mansion. Whereas Dark Moon takes that, and instead of just one area to explore, you have multiple areas to explore. And there was a lot to do in the game. There's a lot of stuff you could actually search and collect. A lot of new ghosts were introduced. Some cool boss stuff as well. Some really fun battles. And overall, for a game that we waited a long time to actually get a sequel to, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon was a great way to kind of kick off the year of Luigi that Nintendo kind of put out there with a lot of Luigi-based games. And this is definitely one of my favorite pick-up and can play anytime 3DS games, just like the original Luigi's Mansion was back on the GameCube. I highly recommend checking it out. If you didn't get a chance to play Dark Moon, definitely check out Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. Number 15. Next up on my list is another Nintendo title. There's actually quite a few of them on the list this year. And this is Pikmin 3. Now, Pikmin 3, of course, the sequel to Pikmin 2 and Pikmin 1, is a game where you are on a planet trying to find your other crewmates originally and also get enough food to survive and find a new inhabitable planet for your people. And to do so, you find the Pikmin. Little alien-like plants that you can actually pick up and harvest and that follow you around and listen to your every command. And you use them in order to find pieces of ships or new devices or just clear your path, take out other enemies that may try to get in your way, collect food. Whatever you need them to do, they're there to help you out. It's a very fun, it has RTS style elements, so if you're a fan of that kind of tactical game, Pikmin is highly recommended by me. All the series has been extremely fun. While the original game was shot down a little bit for its time limit, it's a very strict time limit. And Pikmin 3 has a time limit on your day, of course, runs out, and you have to wrap things up. But you don't really have too much of a limit outside of that, as you can keep coming back to the areas and explore them and find new things as you're trying to find everything on the planet itself, exploring all kinds of new areas, really fun boss battles where it's really fun to kind of figure out what you need to do, what kind of Pikmin you need to bring in, because you have red and blue and purple and all kinds of different Pikmin that you can use to help you out and use them to fight and do different things against certain bosses and other things that you need to fight to help you out. It's just a lot of fun. It's a game that you can really get addicted to as well, and that's kind of something Nintendo likes to do, it seems like. But definitely recommend checking out Pikmin 3, the best game in the series probably that has come out. It's only been 3 games in the series, but this one was well worth the wait, and definitely one of the reasons to pick up a Nintendo Wii U for sure. Number 14. Okay, next up is Tomb Raider. Yes, Tomb Raider, the remake or reboot to the Tomb Raider franchise. Now, this game is only number 14 on my list for a couple of reasons. I did have a couple of issues with the game. I talked about that earlier this year after I had completed playing it. But I have to give the makers of the game a lot of credit. They did a lot of really cool things. There's a lot of details to this. The cutscenes alone are worth watching on themselves. They're very well done. It really feels like you're trying to survive on this island, survive in this area, and the combat is a lot of fun of doing the game. Not the best combat, of course, of the years. We'll get to that later, but still, Tomb Raider is a great reboot to a franchise. It is one of the few times where a series needed a reboot. The last few Tomb Raider games have kind of gotten lost in the shuffle, especially after the PS2 era. The original PlayStation Tomb Raider was strong as heck, and it kind of started fading after that. And I feel like this is the game that, with a reboot, has kind of gotten new interest in the series, and we'll be seeing Tomb Raider for many years to come now, with this reboot being as strong as it was. There's a lot to find and discover on the island. They do a good job of good checkpoints here and there, so even if you do a little bit of exploring and you end up losing a life by trying to make a jump that you weren't able to, you don't get set back too far. The game, there's a lot to explore. You can do a lot of cool climbing and type elements, and it's definitely worth playing for sure. So check out Tomb Raider if you didn't. I know they are doing a new version of the game that'll be coming out for the next-gen systems, PS4, and I think Xbox One, but I'm not positive, coming out, I think, near the beginning of 2014. So if you didn't play it back in 2013, you'll have the chance to play it now in 2014. Number 13. Next up on the list at number 13 is Fire Emblem Awakening. Now, Fire Emblem Awakening, the newest game in the Fire Emblem series. Series has been going on since the 1980s on the original Famicom system in Japan. Now, Fire Emblem Awakening is not only the newest game, but they kind of redid certain things in the game. The last game that had come out was a remake of the original Fire Emblem that came out on the Nintendo DS, and it kind of fell flat in a lot of ways. They went back, kind of rethought some things, and overall have given us the best Fire Emblem game possibly ever in North America. This is a game that you get extremely invested in the little characters that you end up having. It's a tactics-based battle system. They added a new element where you form relationships, and with your main character, you can actually get married in the game and end up having a kid that has connections and abilities based on the character that you end up getting in a relationship with. The game is extremely difficult if you play on the original classic style settings, which is how I recommend playing it, where basically if a character ends up dying in the battle, you lose them forever. And there's little things, if you take those off, the game's a lot easier and maybe a little bit more accessible for those who want a more kind of casual tactic experience. So that element is there, but for those who want kind of a tough tactical game, playing through it without kind of manipulating your levels, playing on the harder difficulty, and having the original thing of once you're dead, permadeath, that once you're dead, you're dead. This game can present a lot of challenge, and it's worth it, and you feel like you actually did something good each and every time you complete a battle in the game. It's a tactics-based system. It's kind of a rock, paper, scissors thing as far as some of the weaponries and some of the things go in the game. So once you kind of master and learn how everything works, you'll get used to easily what type of class and weapon can take out each and every other one and which ones they're strong and weak against. It's a lot of fun. If you've never played any of the Fire Emblem games, you can definitely get involved with this one. Thankfully, most of the Fire Emblems don't have a connecting story, but this one, of course, is a brand new title in it. You can pick it up, play it, and don't have to have experienced any of the previous games. I really highly recommend, if you want a strong RPG tactics style game, pick up Fire Emblem Awakening for the Nintendo 3DS. Number 12. Next up, more Nintendo. And we're going to be hearing a lot of Nintendo in the next couple parts. But anyway, next up is Super Mario 3D World. Super Mario 3D World for the Nintendo Wii U is actually the third Mario title, main Mario title, that's been released already in the short lifespan of the year-long lifespan of the Nintendo Wii U. And you may think that maybe Nintendo's trying to rush too many titles out there, that Mario sells, so get as many Mario titles out there. And that may be correct, as the Wii U has faltered in sales. But there are some strong games where you look for them for the Nintendo Wii U, and this is one of those. Much better, in my opinion, than the game that launched with the system in New Super Mario Bros. U, and better than that game's DLC or expansion, New Luigi U. This game presents multiplayer gameplay in a 3D environment, as in the New Super Mario Bros. Was more of a 2.5D, where the models and all were 3D, but the game was still a 2D experience. Whereas this is presenting you a 3D-like world that you can run around and explore in all three dimensions with different Mario characters. Up to 4 players are able to play at once. You can use a large variety of controllers, so they make it really accessible to those who may only have Wiimotes and all. And thankfully they do that. Unfortunately, Wii U still can't use GameCube controllers. There's no way to plug them in. That would probably be the only plus that's not there, but with the game, you can play it. The controls are responsive. It gets extremely hectic with multiple people. There is a ton of levels to explore in the game. You have to collect all the stars and the stamps and get every flagpole. The first time ever in Mario history where getting to the top of the flagpole is actually a collectible, and you need to do so in every one of the levels if you want to see the very, very last levels of the game. Once you beat the main game, there's actually multiple worlds after that to explore and unlock. So there's a lot to do here. Has good soundtrack, one of the better Mario soundtracks we've heard since Galaxy. Maybe not quite as good overall of a game as Galaxy and Galaxy 2 were, but it's still a very good Mario game. Definitely one of the best multiplayer. It's probably my favorite now, multiplayer Mario game available. And like I said, if you have a Wii U and you haven't picked this up, there's really not a whole ton, unfortunately, on Wii U right now. This is definitely, probably, maybe the best game on the entire system so far. Number 11. Next up, more Nintendo. Yeah, that's right. We got Pokemon. How can I go through a top 20 list of 2013 without mentioning Pokemon X and Pokemon Y? The newest games in the Pokemon series, and a great effort into improving and changing Pokemon to the new gen of handhelds. This is the first Pokemon game that we got in the main series for the Nintendo 3DS, as even though the 3DS was out when Black and White 2 hit the market, they were for the original DS. Though it's kind of funny to think about because I played them nonstop on my actual 3DS at the time. But either way, Pokemon X and Y presents you in a new world to explore for Pokemon based on actual France. And there's some really cool stuff, including the game's version of the Eiffel Tower to explore. They do 3D graphics for the first time on the handheld for the Pokemon, so you're seeing Pokemon in a full 3D thing. They added new things to interact with your Pokemon. All Pokemon are pretty much available. At the point of this video, they still hadn't quite gotten out the transfer system for Pokemon. So you could bring Pokemon from your previous Nintendo DS titles, but that will be out anytime, so it's probably out by the time you're actually watching this. But overall, with the game itself, there's a good amount to it. There's a decent amount of post-game to do, but of course it's Pokemon. There's so much to collect. There's so many Pokemon to evolve. And the new Pokemon, well, maybe not the best of the new Pokemon as far as, like, the best additions to the series. Some questionable Pokemon here and there, but there's still some really lovable, new, and fun Pokemon. The new element of Fairy being a new type of class in Pokemon definitely presents some new gameplay challenges and elements, and really kind of mixes up the gameplay the first time, and actually a decent amount of time in the series. So a lot of new stuff here. If you're a fan of Pokemon, you've already played it and picked it up. But if you haven't, definitely check out Pokemon X and Y. It's on my top 20 list for a reason, because not only is it a great Pokemon game, it's a very fun RPG, even if you've never played any of the Pokemon games previously. So there we go. That is my top 20, numbers 20 through 11. And I'll be back soon with my top 10 for 2013. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.